I thought I knew my boyfriend. His name was Ethan. For almost 2 years, he was the person I trusted most. He called me every morning, texted me before going to bed, remembered my favorite coffee. He even kept a photograph of us inside his wallet. I thought that meant something. I thought I meant something. I was wrong. Because while I was planning our future, Ethan was living 4 different lives. And I didn't discover the truth from another woman. I discovered it from a notification on his phone. It happened on a Friday night. Ethan had told me he was working late. I was sitting at home waiting for him. Around 10:30 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was Ethan. Don't wait up. I'm exhausted. Going straight to sleep after work. I smiled. I typed. Okay, red heart, sleep well. Then I noticed something strange. A few seconds later, another message appeared. Not from Ethan. From an unknown number. Are you coming tonight? I miss you. I stared at it. I hadn't sent anything. The message was meant for Ethan. I immediately called him. He didn't answer. I called again. Nothing. Then I received another message. Why aren't you answering? You promised you'd come over. My stomach tightened. I knew something was wrong, but I still tried to convince myself there was an innocent explanation. Maybe it was a coworker. Maybe someone had the wrong number. Maybe. I was overthinking. Then another message arrived. This time, there was a photograph. Ethan, standing beside another woman. His arm was around her, and he was wearing the same black shirt he'd worn that morning when he kissed me goodbye. The caption said, "Best boyfriend ever, red heart." I couldn't breathe. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I searched the woman's number. Her name was Sophie, and according to her social media, she had been dating Ethan for 8 months. 8 months. While I had been dating him for almost 2 years. I kept scrolling. Then I saw another photograph. Ethan and Sophie at a restaurant. Another one. Ethan giving her flowers. Another. Ethan celebrating her birthday. Then I noticed something that made my hand shake. A photograph from 3 months earlier. Ethan was wearing the necklace I had bought him for our anniversary. He had told me he'd lost it. He hadn't lost it. He had given it to her. I thought Sophie was the other woman. Then I found Mia. Mia had been posting pictures with Ethan too. Then Chloe. Then another woman named Rachel. 4 women. 4 relationships. 1 boyfriend. I sat on my bedroom floor staring at my phone. For 2 years, I had believed I was building a life with 1 man. But Ethan had been telling 4 women the same things. You're the only one. I want a future with you. I've never loved anyone like I love you. He wasn't a boyfriend. He was running a system. And every woman believed she was special. The next morning, Ethan arrived at my apartment with flowers. He kissed my forehead. Good morning, beautiful. I looked at him. For the first time, his smile looked fake. Did you sleep well? Yeah. How was work? Exhausting. I almost laughed. You know what's funny? What? Sometimes people lie so much. They start believing their own lies. His smile disappeared for half a second. Then he laughed. What's wrong with you today? Nothing. I kissed his cheek. Actually, I'm feeling great. He looked confused. And that's when I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront Ethan. I was going to find out everything. I created a new folder on my laptop. I named it The Truth. Inside, I saved every photograph, every message, every date, every restaurant receipt, every social media post. I began building a timeline. Monday, he was with me. Tuesday, he told me he had a work meeting. He was with Sophie. Wednesday, he told Sophie he was visiting his mother. He was with Mia. Thursday, he told Mia he was traveling for work. He was with Chloe. Friday, he told Chloe he was too tired to go out. He was with Rachel. The lies were so organized, it almost looked like a business schedule. Then I discovered something even worse. Ethan wasn't just dating these women. He was borrowing money from all of us. He had told me he was saving for our future. He had told Sophie he was starting a business with her. He had told Mia he was paying a family debt. He had told Chloe he needed money for his mother's medical bills. And Rachel? He had convinced her to lend him money for a car. Different stories.
Same man.
Same bank account. I finally understood his plan. He wasn't looking for love. He was looking for women who trusted him. And I was probably his biggest source of money. I checked my bank records. Over the past year, I had transferred Ethan almost $18,000. Every payment had a different excuse.
Rent.
Car repairs. Business expenses. Travel. Emergency bills. And now I realized he had never needed the money. He had been using it to maintain his 4 different relationships. I stared at my laptop. Then I smiled, because Ethan thought he had 4 girlfriends. He didn't know. His 4 girlfriends were about to meet each other, and I was going to make sure he couldn't lie his way out of it.
I didn't sleep that night.
Not because I was heartbroken, because I was planning. Ethan had spent 2 years believing he could control every woman in his life. He thought if he told each of us a different story, we would never compare notes. He was wrong. The next morning, I created 4 separate folders.
Sophie.
MIA.
Chloe.
Rachel. Inside each folder, I saved screenshots, photographs,
Dates.
messages, bank transfers, everything. Then I created one final folder. Ethan's lies. That folder contained the proof connecting all 4 relationships. I didn't want rumors. I didn't want revenge based on accusations. I wanted facts. My first step was Sophie. I sent her a message from a new account. I think we need to talk about Ethan. She immediately replied. Who are you? I sent her one photograph. Ethan kissing me outside my apartment. The date was visible. Sophie stopped responding. 5 minutes later, she called. Who are you? My name is Emily. Silence. How do you know Ethan? I'm his girlfriend. She laughed nervously.
No.
Yes. That's impossible. Ask him. She hung up. Then I received a message. How long? Almost 2 years. She didn't answer for several minutes. Then, I've been with him for 8 months. I replied. I know. Sophie came to my apartment that afternoon. She looked angry.
But not at me.
At him. She showed me her phone. Hundreds of messages. Ethan had told her, I've never had a serious relationship before you. I showed her the same message Ethan had sent me, almost word for word. She started crying. I feel so stupid. I shook my head. You're not stupid. He lied to you. He lied to me too. Then I told her about the other women. She stared at me. Other women? I nodded. 3 more. She couldn't believe it. You're serious? I opened the folder and showed her. Sophie covered her mouth. He's disgusting. I know. Next came Mia. Mia initially refused to believe me. She told me, Ethan loves me. I answered. He told me the same thing yesterday. Then I sent her the bank statement. She recognized the account immediately. She had transferred Ethan $6,500. She had believed the money was for his mother's emergency surgery. She called her mother. Her mother was perfectly healthy. Mia went silent, then whispered, He lied about that too. I nodded. Chloe was harder.
She was furious with me.
She accused me of trying to steal Ethan. I didn't argue. I simply sent her one screenshot. It was a message from Ethan. Chloe is just a friend. You're the only woman I'm serious about. The message had been sent to Sophie.
Chloe stared at it.
Then another screenshot arrived. This one showed Ethan sending the same words to Rachel. She called me immediately. I hate him. So do I. What are we going to do? I smiled. We're going to let him explain. Rachel was the final woman. She was the quietest. When I told her, she didn't cry.
She didn't yell.
She simply asked, How much money did he take from you? I told her, $18,000. She was silent. Then, $9,200 from me. Sophie had given him $4,000. Mia had given him $6,500. Chloe had paid for his car repairs. Together, we realized Ethan had taken more than $40,000 from the 4 of us. And suddenly, this wasn't just cheating. It was manipulation. We decided to meet. For women, One restaurant, one table, and one very complicated story. Sophie arrived first, then Mia, then Chloe, then Rachel. We looked at each other. Nobody knew what to say. Finally, Sophie laughed. Can you believe we're all dating the same man? We started laughing, not because it was funny, because sometimes you laugh when the truth is too painful. Then we compared everything. His favorite excuses, his fake work schedule, his supposed family emergencies, his favorite restaurants, even the names of his friends. The patterns were obvious. But then Rachel noticed something. Wait. She opened her phone. Ethan told me his apartment lease ends next month. I frowned. That's strange. Why? Because he told me he owns that apartment. Everyone looked at each other. Mia said, he told me the same thing. Chloe opened her phone. He told me he's buying another property. Sophie whispered, guys. She pulled up an address. Ethan didn't own any property. The apartment belonged to someone else. And the name on the lease wasn't Ethan. It was a woman. Jessica Moore. We didn't know who she was. But Ethan had been paying her every month. And the payments were coming from the same account where our money had been deposited. I contacted the bank. They couldn't give me private information. But my forensic accountant found the public business records. Jessica Moore was listed as the owner of a small property management company. And there was one strange connection. Jessica had previously worked with Ethan. I looked at the documents.
Then I realized something.
Ethan wasn't simply hiding girlfriends. He was hiding an entire financial operation. The women, the borrowed money, the apartment, the fake emergencies, everything was connected. That night, I called Ethan. He answered immediately. Hey, beautiful. I smiled. Are you free tomorrow night? Of course. Good. What are we doing? I paused. Something special. He laughed. Is this a date? Something like that. Then I said, meet me at the garden room tomorrow at 7. Just us. I smiled. You'll see. He had no idea, because the next evening, he was going to walk into a restaurant expecting a romantic dinner with his girlfriend. Instead, he was going to find all 4 of us sitting at the same table. And behind us, a large screen would be waiting, loaded with every lie he had ever told. The next evening, I arrived at the garden room early. The restaurant was beautiful. Soft lights, elegant tables, quiet music. But there was one thing Ethan didn't know. This wasn't a date. It was an intervention. Sophie sat across from me. Mia was beside her. Chloe sat near the window. Rachel was holding the folder containing all the financial records. And behind us, a large screen was ready. Every message, every photograph, every lie, everything was waiting. At exactly 7:03 p.m., Ethan walked through the restaurant doors. He was wearing a dark suit, holding flowers. He looked around, then smiled when he saw me. Emily. He walked toward our table, then stopped. His smile disappeared. He looked at Sophie, then Mia, then Chloe, then Rachel. His face went completely pale. What is this? I smiled. Sit down. He didn't move. Emily, sit. He slowly pulled out the chair. He looked terrified. What are they doing here? Sophie answered. Apparently we're all dating you. Ethan stared at her, then looked at me. That's not true. I laughed. Really? I picked up my phone. Should we start with Sophie? Ethan immediately stood. I'm leaving. The restaurant doors were behind him, but Sophie spoke. You told me I was the only woman you loved. Ethan froze. You told me Emily was just your ex. I looked at him. Ex. Mia interrupted. He told me he wasn't dating anyone. Chloe added. He told me he was single. Rachel looked at him. He told me he was going to marry me. Silence. 4 women. 4 different stories. 1 liar. Ethan finally sat down. Okay. I made mistakes. I stared at him. Mistakes. He nodded. I was confused. Sophie laughed. Confused for 8 months? Mia said. Confused while taking my money? Chloe crossed her arms. Confused while sleeping with 4 women? Ethan looked at me. Emily, I love you. I almost laughed. You don't even know what love means. I stood up, then pressed the remote. The screen behind us turned on. The first photograph appeared. Ethan and me. Our anniversary. Then another. Ethan and Sophie. Then another. Ethan and Mia. Then Chloe. Then Rachel. The entire room became silent. Next came the messages. His messages to me. You're the only woman I want. Then Sophie's. You're the only woman I want. Then Mia's. The same words. Almost identical. Chloe covered her mouth. Rachel shook her head. Ethan stared at the screen. Where did you get these? I answered. You sent them. Then the financial records appeared. $18,000 from me. $4,000 from Sophie. $6,500 from Mia. $9,200 from Rachel. And additional expenses from Chloe. Total. $40,000 plus. Ethan's face changed. You can't prove I stole anything. Rachel placed the folder on the table. We have bank records. Mia added. And messages. Sophie said. And your fake stories. Chloe smiled. And witnesses. I looked at Ethan. You didn't just cheat on us. You manipulated all of us. Then I showed him the final document. The payments to Jessica Moore. His apartment. The property company. The hidden financial transfers. Ethan stared at the screen. His voice became quiet. You don't understand. Then explain. He looked around. I was trying to build something. What? A business. I shook my head. With our money? I was going to pay everyone back. Sophie stood up. You never intended to. Ethan looked at her. How do you know? She pulled out her phone. Because you sent me this. She showed him a message. It said, once I get the money, I'll disappear. Ethan's face went white. Then the restaurant door opened. A woman walked inside. She looked familiar. I recognized her immediately. Jessica Moore. The woman whose name was connected to Ethan's apartment. Ethan stood up. Jessica? She looked at him. Don't worry. I came to tell them everything. Ethan's expression turned furious. You can't. Jessica placed a folder on the table. I already did. Inside were company records, payment receipts, contracts, and copies of Ethan's messages. She explained everything. Ethan had created a fake business. He used money from women to pay his personal expenses. Jessica had helped him rent properties and move money between accounts. But eventually, he stopped paying her too. She decided to cooperate with the investigation. Ethan looked around the table. He realized there was nowhere left to hide. Then he looked at me. Emily. What? Can we talk privately?
No.
Please.
No.
I really did love you. I stared at him. Maybe you loved what I gave you. He lowered his head. I continued. You didn't lose me tonight. You lost me the first time you lied. We didn't scream. We didn't fight. We didn't destroy anything. We simply stood up and walked away. But before I left, I placed one final envelope in front of Ethan. He looked at it. What's this? Your future. Inside was a letter from my attorney. I had formally demanded repayment of the money he had taken from me. The other women had done the same. And because the financial evidence suggested intentional deception, the case was being referred for further investigation. Ethan looked at me. You planned all of this. I smiled.
No.
You planned it. I simply put all the pieces together. 3 weeks later, the investigation expanded. The bank records revealed more transactions. Ethan had borrowed money from several other people, not just us. His fake business had almost collapsed. Jessica cooperated with investigators. The 4 of us submitted our evidence. And slowly, the truth came out. But something unexpected happened. Sophie called me one afternoon. Emily. Yes. I found another woman. My stomach tightened. Another girlfriend? She sighed. Yes. I thought there were 4. Apparently, there had been 5. Her name was Laura. And when we contacted her, she revealed something that changed the entire story. Laura wasn't just another girlfriend. She had been engaged to Ethan. for almost 3 years. And she had one document we had never seen before, a marriage application. Ethan had apparently planned to marry Laura, while telling all four of us that we were his future. But the document contained something even more shocking. The witness listed on the application was my best friend, Sarah. I stared at the name. Sarah had been my best friend since college. She knew everything about my relationship with Ethan. She knew how much I loved him. And now, I had to ask myself one terrifying question. How much had Sarah known? I stared at the name on the marriage application. Sarah Miller, my best friend. The woman who had held my hand when Ethan proposed. The woman who helped me choose my engagement dress. The woman who cried with me when Ethan told me he was working late. The woman I had trusted more than almost anyone. Now her name was listed as a witness on Ethan's marriage application. I called her immediately. Sarah. Hey, Emily. Where are you?
She paused.
At home. I need to ask you something. Okay. Do you know Laura? Silence. That silence told me everything. Sarah? She finally whispered. Yes. My heart sank.
How?
I met her through Ethan. I closed my eyes. How long have you known? About a year. I couldn't believe it. You knew Ethan was engaged to another woman? Yes. And you knew he was dating me? Yes. Why didn't you tell me? She started crying. Because he threatened me. I froze. What did he threaten you with? He knew something about my past. What? I made a mistake years ago. And he used it against you? Yes. I sat down. For the first time, I realized Ethan hadn't just manipulated for women. He had surrounded himself with people he could control. Sarah came to my apartment that evening. She brought a folder. I should have given you this months ago. I opened it. Inside were emails between Sarah and Ethan. The earliest one was dated almost 2 years ago. My stomach turned. That was before Ethan and I officially started dating. I looked at her. What is this? He asked me to help him. Help him do what? Find out everything about you. I couldn't speak. Sarah continued. He wanted to know about your finances, your family, your job, your savings, everything. I stared at her. So, our relationship was planned? She nodded. At first, I felt sick. What changed? Sarah wiped her tears. You actually fell in love with him. And he didn't. She looked away.
No.
Then she gave me another document. It was a spreadsheet. My name was at the top. Underneath were categories. Income, savings, family inheritance, credit cards,
Property.
investments, and beside each, a number. I stared at it. They had been tracking my financial life. Not because Ethan loved me, because he wanted to know how much money he could eventually get. I felt something inside me break. But this time, it wasn't my heart. It was the last piece of trust one had left. Sarah told me everything. Ethan had approached her because she was my closest friend. He asked questions casually. At first, she didn't realize what he was doing. Then he began asking about grandma's inheritance. That's when Sarah became suspicious. But by then, she was already trapped. Ethan had discovered Sarah had once falsified a document at her workplace. He threatened to expose her. So she kept quiet. I looked at her. You should have told me. I know. You could have stopped this. I know. I took a deep breath. I forgive you. She looked shocked. You do. Not completely. But I'm willing to try. She began crying. For the first time, I saw Sarah as someone who had made a terrible choice, not someone who wanted to destroy me. But there was one thing she still hadn't told me. Sarah?
What?
Who is Laura? Sarah looked terrified. Laura isn't Ethan's fiancée. I frowned. Then who is she? Sarah lowered her voice. She's his business partner. What business? The fake investment company. I froze. Why would she pretend to be his fiancée? Because she needed access to wealthy people. And Ethan? He recruited women. And Laura handled the money. Suddenly, everything made sense. This wasn't just Ethan's operation. It was a network. Ethan found women who trusted him. Laura handled the financial side. Jessica helped move money. And someone else was funding the entire operation. I asked.
Who?
Sarah shook her head. I don't know. The next morning, the 5 of us met.
Me, Sophie, Mia, Chloe,
Rachel, and now Laura. Laura sat across from us. She looked nervous. I know you hate me. I shook my head. I don't hate you. You should.
Why?
Because I knew what Ethan was doing. Everyone became silent. Laura explained that she had joined Ethan's operation years earlier. She wasn't his real fiancée. The marriage application was part of a scheme to create a legitimate-looking identity for him. She had helped create fake business records, fake invoices, fake investment contracts. But then, she realized Ethan was using the women emotionally. That's when she decided to leave. He threatened her, just like Sarah, just like everyone else. Then Laura pulled out a USB drive. I kept copies. I stared at it. Copies of what? Everything. Bank records, customer lists, fake contracts, names, phone numbers, payment records, and a list of people who had been targeted. There were 37 names, 37 women. Ethan wasn't a cheater. He was running a scheme. And suddenly, my revenge wasn't just about me anymore. I handed the USB drive to my attorney. He contacted the authorities. Within days, investigators began connecting the records. Then they found the person behind the operation. A wealthy businessman named Richard Brooks, Ryan's father, the same man who had appeared in the earlier inheritance scheme. But there was something we didn't know. Richard wasn't just funding Ethan. He had been running similar schemes for years. Ethan was one of his recruiters. Laura had been his financial assistant, and the women were his targets. When the investigators confronted Richard, he denied everything, until they showed him the records. Then he asked for a lawyer. The case exploded. News outlets began reporting on the investigation. Dozens of victims came forward. Women who had lost thousands. Women who had been manipulated. Women who had been told they were loved, when they were actually being targeted. A month later, Ethan called me from his lawyer's office. I want to apologize.
I didn't respond.
I know you don't owe me forgiveness.
No.
But I need you to know.
What?
I really did love you eventually. I laughed quietly. Eventually? Yes. You fell in love after you realized I knew the truth? Silence. I continued. You didn't love me, Ethan. You loved the version of me you thought you could control. He whispered. I'm sorry. I answered. Goodbye. Then I ended the call. I thought that was the end. But that evening, my attorney called. Emily, there's one more thing. What? The investigation found another account. Whose? He paused. Yours. I froze. What do you mean? Someone deposited $75,000 into an account using your identity. Why? We don't know. Where did the money come from? My attorney's voice became serious. Your boyfriend wasn't the one who opened the account. I felt a chill. Then who? He answered. Your own bank manager. I stared at the phone. The man who had handled my accounts for years had apparently helped Ethan access my private financial information. And now, I realized the betrayal was much bigger than I ever imagined. When my attorney told me that someone at my own bank had helped Ethan access my private financial information, I couldn't speak. Are you sure? Yes. Who is it? He gave me the name. Mark Wilson. My bank manager. I'd known him for 6 years. He had helped me open my first savings account. He had advised me about investments. He had even congratulated me when I got my promotion. And now, he had apparently been helping Ethan. I immediately requested every transaction connected to my account. The records were shocking. Someone had accessed my account information dozens of times. Someone had downloaded my financial statements. Someone had checked my credit history. And someone had shared my information with an outside company. The outside company was owned by Richard Brooks, Ryan's father, the same man investigators believed was behind Ethan's operation. Everything connected. Ethan, Laura, Jessica, Richard, the bank manager.
And me.
I wasn't just Ethan's girlfriend. I had been his biggest target. But there was something else. The $75,000 deposited into the account using my identity, it wasn't stolen money. It was a payment. Someone had paid to create a fake financial trail. They wanted it to look like I was receiving illegal money. If investigators had found the account without the explanation, I could have been blamed. I finally understood the real endgame. Ethan hadn't just wanted my money. He wanted to destroy my reputation. Then, he could walk away with everything. I met with the investigators. I gave them everything. Messages, bank records, the USB drive, Sarah's emails, Laura's documents, the recordings, everything. The investigation became much bigger. Mark was questioned. At first, he denied everything. Then investigators showed him the access logs. He broke down. He admitted that Richard had paid him to provide confidential information. But there was one thing he claimed he didn't know. He said Richard told him, "We're protecting an important client." Mark believed he was only helping with private financial research. He didn't know the information was being used to target women. It didn't excuse what he had done, but it explained how the operation had remained hidden for so long. 3 months later, the case finally went to court. I sat in the courtroom. Sophie sat beside me.
Mia. Chloe.
Rachel. Laura. And Sarah. We were no longer strangers. We had become something unexpected. A group of women who had survived the same manipulation. Ethan entered the courtroom. He looked completely different. No expensive suit. No confident smile. No flowers. No charming excuses. Just a man finally facing the consequences of his choices. He looked at me. I didn't look away. The prosecutor presented the evidence. 37 victims. Hundreds of messages. Thousands of financial records. Fake companies. False identities. Manipulated relationships. The evidence was overwhelming. Ethan eventually admitted his role. Richard tried to deny everything. But Laura's USB drive contained years of records. Names. Payments. Instructions. Everything. The court eventually found Richard guilty of multiple financial crimes. Ethan also accepted responsibility for his role. The other people involved faced their own legal consequences. The money that could be recovered was returned to the victims. I recovered most of what I had lost. But by then, the money didn't matter anymore. After the case ended, Sophie hugged me. We actually survived. I smiled. We did. Mia laughed. Imagine if we had never met. Chloe shook her head. We would have kept believing him. Rachel looked at all of us. Not anymore. Laura stood beside us. I'm sorry for my part in it. I looked at her. You helped expose it. She nodded. That doesn't erase what happened.
No.
But it matters. Sarah approached me last. She was crying. I'll never forgive myself for what I did. I hugged her, not because everything was forgotten, but because I finally understood something. People can make terrible choices, but sometimes they can choose differently. Sarah had eventually chosen the truth. That mattered. A year later, I started my own company. Not a dating business. Not a financial company. Something completely different. I created a financial education platform for women. My goal was simple. Teach women how to protect their money, identity, and future. The first program was free. The first year, more than 20,000 women joined. Then I received an email. The subject line said, "Thank you for saving me." A woman explained that she had recognized the same patterns in her boyfriend. The lies. The financial emergencies. The secretive behavior. She ended the relationship before losing anything. I stared at the email, then smiled. Maybe that was the best revenge of all. One evening, I went back to the restaurant where everything had started. The garden room. I sat at the same table. The same place where Ethan had walked in expecting one girlfriend and discovered 4. I ordered coffee. Then I looked around. I remembered how broken I had felt that night. I remembered thinking my life was over. But it wasn't. It was beginning. Because losing Ethan taught me something I had never understood before. Someone lying to you doesn't make you foolish for believing them. But discovering the truth gives you the power to choose what happens next. I didn't destroy Ethan. I didn't ruin his life. He did that himself. Every lie became evidence. Every betrayal became a clue. Every manipulation eventually exposed another part of his plan. And when everything collapsed, I was still standing. I opened my phone. There was one final message from Ethan. I hope someday you can forgive me. I stared at it for a long time, then deleted it. Not because I hated him, because he no longer mattered. I walked out of the restaurant. The evening air felt warm. I looked up at the city lights. 2 years earlier, I thought Ethan was my future. Now, I couldn't even remember why I had been so afraid of losing him, because I had gained something much more valuable. My independence, my confidence, my voice, and most importantly, my freedom. I smiled and kept walking. Behind me, the past stayed where it belonged. And this time, I didn't look back.